So this story time is so funny, you guys. I completely forgot about this until I looked through my old Snapchat memories and an old video came up of this day. So as some of you guys may know, I used to work at Six Flags when I was in high school. It was a terrible experience, but that's not what this video is about. This video is about one of the perks that I got working at Six Flags. So I was allowed to bring one person and myself for free to Six Flags on any of my days off. So I was best friends with this one girl, and every chance that we got, we would go to Six Flags. The only thing was that this friend of mine hated roller coasters. She was completely terrified of them, so we never went on them. Until one day, I convinced her. Don't ask me how I did it because I have no idea. I'm a very persuasive person, so I was just like pushing, and I just like basically didn't let her say no. Not gonna lie, it's one of my toxic traits, but we'll talk about that another time. So anyway, there's a roller coaster ride. It's called El Toro. And it doesn't go upside down or anything. And that was one of the main things my friend said, is that she does not want to go upside down. But this ride is still a pretty intense ride. It's the fastest ride at Six Flags other than King Ka. So I take her on El Toro, right? So she's obviously super nervous. So the first drop, she's screaming, I'm screaming. Then I feel all her body weight on me. So I'm laughing, but I look over to her and she went limp, like as if she fell asleep. Then we go up again, she starts screaming. We go down again, she goes limp. Over and over and over.
So imagine you are having severe back pain and you decide to put your trust in a doctor. He's a new doctor, he's confident, says that he's never made any mistakes before, and claims that he can take your pain away. So you agree to have surgery. It seems that everyone around this doctor really likes him. So you agree in hopes that this surgery is going to provide some sort of relief. However, you wake up after surgery and you've lost the ability to move your legs. Was this spinal cord injury just a medical mishap? Or did this doctor intentionally try to kill you? Well, Dr. Christopher Daniel Dunch, a former neurosurgeon working in Dallas, ended up getting the nickname of Dr. Death. 33 out of 38 of his patients were seriously injured and 2 were killed. His reputation was so dangerous that they are literally about to come out with a TV series based on how terrifying his true story is, which you guys should definitely go watch on Peacock. But how exactly did this man get here? Well, Christopher Dunch was born in Montana on April 3rd of 1971. He graduated from a small Christian college and then decided that he'd go to medical school in Memphis. Part 2 of Dr. Death. So Christopher Dunch had such a promising beginning. He ended up getting into the University of Tennessee Health Science Center, and during his time there, he ran labs, raised millions of dollars in grant funding. He was listed as one of 3 inventors on a successful patent, and he also gave a stem cell research tour to the governor of Tennessee. And while this seems amazing, there was already some issues. He ended up giving himself more credit than what was due for those patents, as opposed to his partners who were trying to create cells from culture to eliminate the need for human extraction. Also, later on his resume, he ended up saying that he graduated from St. Jude's Children's Hospital, getting a doctorate in microbiology whenever they said they didn't even have that program at that time. But it didn't take him long to set his sights on neurosurgery. Because of how hard being a neurosurgeon is, you're required to participate in around 1,000 surgeries during your residency. But during his 4th year, he was sent to an impaired physicians program, which usually happens when you're suspected of being under the influence during operation. And this occurred during his 4th year. After graduating, he worked with some biotech startups, and then moved to Dallas, got a job at Baylor, and started to operate. Part 3 to Dr. Death. The way that the other surgeons describe him there is being very much arrogant. He would talk about how amazing he was, even though he was so new to the field. And several of his surgeries ended up botched. A medical investigator came to see him as a patient, and after his surgery, he experienced chronic pain and limited mobility. Another male patient came to see him and was literally left with bone fragments in his spinal canal, eventually losing all function in his left side. And not to mention one of his best friends, Jerry Summers, came to see him for his surgery because he had chronic pain due to a car accident, which ended up rendering him quadriplegic. So the people at Baylor limited him to minor surgeries only. And then a mom of 2 girls came to see him for a routine surgery, in which she lost so much blood that she lost her life. And during the operation, Dr. Dunce ignored that anything was going wrong. He just continued the surgery. So Baylor was absolutely done with him and kicked him out. So he moved on to Dallas Medical Center. He ended up getting temporary privileges until they received his records from Baylor. This was a huge mistake. Dr. Death Part 4. So at this new surgery center, he literally lasted for less than a week. His privileges were pulled after he killed yet another patient and paralyzed another. And this is when Dr. Henderson steps in. He's a longtime spine surgeon, and he ends up having to do corrective surgery on 2 of Dunch's patients. And he's literally so horrified with his work that he thinks he's an imposter. So he faxed a photo of the doctor over to the University of Tennessee just to check. And it really started to seem like he knew what not to do and was doing it on purpose. Anyone with a basic anatomy class would have done better. Since he was only temporary, the hospital was not required to report him. And Dr. Dunch ended up getting 2 more jobs after this, and severely hurting more people. One was left temporarily paralyzed but with permanent pain. And the other one, he mistook a neck muscle for a tumor and cut a hole in his esophagus and left a surgical sponge in his throat. And the surgeon that came in to pick up the pieces afterwards referred to Dr. Death as a crazed maniac, and even said that it was clear that he was trying to kill his patient. It was obvious Texas was going to have to find a way to remove his license. Dr. Death, Part 5. So after a lot of investigating, Texas Medical Board revoked his license. And this happened on December 6th of 2013. And his life was just in disarray after this. He went bankrupt and was literally caught on the Walmart camera stealing merchandise and was arrested. There was still a possibility that he could get a medical license somewhere else, so they had to pursue criminal charges. They opened up an investigation, got him arrested, and started a trial. And during this trial, a lot of things came out. There was clear dangerous behavior between him and one of his long-term ex-girlfriends, and also another side piece of his. And one of his most damning pieces of evidence was an email of his that he was writing to a lover, comparing himself to Einstein and God, and basically stating that he was ready to leave kindness and goodness behind and become a cold-blooded killer. He ended up getting sentenced to prison, but there was a lot of other stuff that came out during this trial. And I also left out so many details throughout this whole story. You guys will have to watch the show on Peacock. They do such a great job of capturing just how scary this doctor is.
Somebody chose violence. Let's talk about this. All right. It is a well-known fact among my followers that I don't wear makeup in none of my videos. And this person doesn't follow me, so of course they don't know that. So I responded to their comment and said, "What, huh? What do you mean?" And they go, "You know exactly what I mean." For your information, I do not wear makeup. And then I clarify by saying, even if I did, I'm pretty sure that would make me look older, not younger. Because that's what I've been told, that it's because I don't wear makeup, that's why I look very young. That may be one of the reasons, aside from genetics. I was already like, This guy responds, "Ooh, you're quite rare. I like." Get out! I've said this before, but I'm actually used a lot in makeup videos because of the sounds that I make. A lot of my story times are used in the beauty community, and I love that. Although I don't use any makeup, I feel like I'm a part of the beauty community just because my sounds get used a lot. You don't get to put down people who use makeup. It's a skill. You're not less than if you use makeup. It's art. And there are plenty of dudes who want to use makeup but feel like they can't because of people like you and because it's just not marketed towards them. At least in this country. That's not the point. The point is you made an assumption, you were wrong, and you managed to bring down everybody who wears makeup at the same time. Okay, thank you, goodbye.
This is why you should never eat food from public schools. Every day at school, I would eat breakfast and lunch from school. I really looked forward to our school lunches. I thought my school's meals was better than my mom's cooking. Okay, so one day I was trying to gain extra credit at school, and we had this program where we can help out with activities at school to earn extra points toward your grades. So I decided to help out in the cafeteria. So my duties would be to help prepare food and clean up the cooking area. My first day preparing food went great. I stayed later to help clean the cooking area, and as I was putting food away, I noticed there were roaches in the pantry where all the food was stored. I also seen rat traps on the floor and all the corners of the walls. So from that moment, I was totally grossed out. I now no longer eat meals from the school. I carry my lunch every day now.
There's a story time that happened in 2nd grade. So my teacher never allowed fidget spinners, and my friend always brought one to school because that was the only thing that helped us focus. But every time she saw it, she would take it, and she would never return it even though she said she was. So me and my friend, I'm going to call her Jalen, and my other friend, I'm going to name her Caitlin. So me, Jalen, and Caitlin all had this plan to sneak into school and take our fidget spinners. So at recess, we had this plan spot behind the tree, and we would all talk about it. This girl even didn't eat her lunch because her teacher took away her fidget spinner. Anyway, we all had this plan to sneak into school and break the windows, go in class and steal all our fidget spinners and give them back to the owners. But every time we talk about it, we'd get caught by this one kid named Nathan, and he would all go tell the teacher. But the teacher didn't care, obviously, because she knew we weren't going to do it.
So today in English class, our English teacher was going through the rules again, just because I guess like some people were forgetting them or like breaking the rules. So anyway, she was like, just to remind you guys, there's no food in class, no talking to your neighbor without permission. And if I catch you with your phones, then you're gonna have it taken away and your parents are gonna have to come get it. And when she said that part about the phones, this kid raised his hand, and he's like a really creepy kid. And he was like, well, what if I shoot you? Like, hold up. What? You just threatened to shoot a teacher? So I just like looked at him and I scooped my desk away, and the whole class went silent. Like nobody said anything. We were all just staring at him. Like we were all just in shock. Like, did he just threaten to shoot a teacher? After like 10 seconds of it being like completely silent, he reached in his backpack.
This is the reason why I treat people the way that I do. And this is how a toxic friend changed my life. Let's set the scene. 5th grade. I had a best friend, not gonna name her. We were like this. We were partners for everything. Always sat next to each other. If the teacher said team up, she'd be like, I wanna be with Joe today. So we would team up. But if we were ever on a team and we were losing, she would blame me. If I got a question wrong, she would call me dumb. If I shared my snacks with her, she wouldn't share any of hers back with me. You guys know those Cosmo brownies with the sprinkles? I would literally force my mom to buy those just for her. And when I'd ask for a chip, she'd be like, never willing to share. We would get into fights a lot. And in turn, I started being mean. But up until that point, I was a pretty wild child. Pretty crazy. Hyper. This girl would make me feel stupid for getting questions wrong, for not being fast enough in PE, but then the next day would want to be my best friend. I felt like a failure a lot. If I won anything, I'd have to give it to her. And I was mean too. I didn't like the person I was around her. Until eventually in art class, I legitimately had an epiphany. She was copying my artwork. I was a pretty good artist. She knew that, so she was copying me.
Story time. So this was 2 years ago, and I was at school, and it was a normal day until the principal went on the speaker and said, we're in lockdown, go in your closets. So we went ahead and went in the closets. We were all confused. Some people were scared. Everyone was like kind of asking the teacher what was going on and stuff. Now during this time, I wasn't asking anything or saying anything because I knew during a lockdown you don't want to say anything. So if there is someone in the school, they won't find where you are. But I was still listening to them because I was curious like everyone else. So while everyone was asking the questions, one girl stood up and said, if you're not going to say what's going on, I'm going to get out of the closet. The teacher yelled at her and told her no. And the teacher yelled loud, so whoever was in the school obviously heard. So the door opened and everyone became silent.
This is why you should never friend people you don't know on Roblox. I met this guy on Roblox and his name was Jimmy X Bear. He asked if we could be friends on Roblox and I said sure. I wasn't sus of him until a week later when he'd asked me to join his game. And I said sure. So I joined his game. He started then telling me that I was going to get hacked and that I should stay off Roblox. I was completely confused. I didn't know what to say, so I just left the game. After a week or so, I went back on because of how scared I was, and I was logged out of my account. And now I didn't know what to do. So I went to go log into my account. After 20 or so tries, I finally got back in. I looked to go in my Roblox chats and saw Jimmy X Bear. You won't believe what he said next.
Storytime of how my stepmom got so jealous of me and my dad's bond that she plotted to kill me. So I never really liked my stepmom in the first place because she was a little controlling over my dad. And I just knew that she hated me and I really hated her too. But you know, my dad was in love and he seemed happy, so I didn't really say anything. And my dad would always take me to lunch on Saturdays and Sundays. And we'd have like a dad-daughter bonding day, I guess. And me and my dad were just super close. And every single weekend, me going to lunch with him would start an argument between them two because she said I was taking time away from them too. My dad really never chose sides, but I never really got involved in the relationship as much as I hated her because I just loved seeing my dad happy. Also, at this time, I was 15. And what I'm about to say next might sound just a little crazy and unbelievable, but I'm not sure who she was on the phone with. But while on the phone with somebody, she was talking about getting rid of me. Mind you, my mom had passed away when I was younger, and I really had no other family to go to. Now, this is where the story takes a turn for the worse and she tries to get rid of me. I'm running out of time, like, for the crazy part 2. Part 2 of how my stepmom got so jealous of me and my dad's bond that she plotted to kill me.
Continuing on with the story, I don't know who she was on the phone with, but I overheard her on the phone saying that she was going to get rid of me. And honestly, I didn't really care and I didn't really think anything of it because I knew she was crazy, but I didn't think she was that crazy. So all of a sudden, she started making me breakfast. And I'm not a breakfast person. I can't eat right when I get up. So every time she would make me breakfast, I'd be like, thanks, but I'm not hungry. And she would get so mad. Like, so freaking mad. I'm not going to get into all the little details, but comes to find out, she was putting rat poison in my food. She had set up cameras in my room. And I don't know what kind of sense this makes. I think she's just crazy, but she started to hide snakes in my room and claim it was my fault that the snakes were coming in my room. Yeah, doesn't really make any sense. Once I told my dad and my dad got out of his little in love stage with her, he finally stepped up and said something to her. And she admitted that she wanted me dead. He eventually called the cops, and to this day, she is in jail for attempted murder. Oh, did I forget to mention the day that he broke up with her, she tried to stab me in the throat.
So yesterday I was really bored, so I just decided that I would drive around my neighborhood. So I got in my car, I was warming it up, whatever, and I see my neighbor staring at me through their window. So I'm like, is this dude really about to say something? So I just ignore him. I'm like, do whatever you want to do, I don't care. And I pull out of my driveway and I drive off. 2 seconds later, I see my neighbor's car following me. So I'm like, you know what? Maybe they're just leaving the neighborhood. Maybe they're going to the store or something. Maybe they're not even following me. So I take a left, they take a left. I take another left, they take another left. To the point where I make a whole circle and they keep following me. So I did 2 more circles around the neighborhood, still were following me. Up until I pulled into my driveway and they sped off. I love having nosy neighbors.
This is why you should be careful working in food delivery. When the pandemic hit, I lost my job and signed up to work for a food delivery app. I was making good money and the tips were nice too. During the first few months of working, I never had any weird experiences or customers. For the most part, everything was fine. There were times when I was a little scared of dropping off the food because it was in sketchy neighborhoods or it was dark outside, but nothing ever happened. I started feeling confident in my position and I let my guard down. One night, I got a delivery request and the tip was bigger than the total order. When I looked at the details of how to drop it off, I realized why the tip was so big. The instructions asked if I could open the door and bring it inside of the house as they were bedbound and unable to walk to the door. I knew I shouldn't do it. It was super against company policy, but I had an aunt who was bedbound and it hit a soft spot. When I opened the door of the house, I was hit with the most vile stench that's ever hit my nose. I looked around and called out to the customer. It was silent for a few seconds. Suddenly, someone croaked out, "I'm back here, come on down." The voice came from a bedroom down the hallway that was pitch black. As I walked towards the room, my stomach was turning. I entered the room and put the order down, but I didn't see anyone. When I turned around to leave, suddenly a man appeared in front of me. Part 2 of why you should be careful working in food delivery. This man was tall, wore glasses, and was balding. He was also fully functional from what I could tell. In this moment, I realized how badly I had messed up. I was cornered away from the doorway. He thanked me for dropping off his order. I politely replied, "You're welcome," and tried to step around him to leave. He took a step in the same direction at the same exact moment and asked me what I was up to for the rest of the night. My heart was pounding out of my chest, but I quickly replied that I had another order to drop off and that they were waiting, so I had to go. However, he didn't move. Somehow, I mustered up enough courage to step towards him and say, "Excuse me, I really have to go." His hand was on the door and I knew he was either going to let me go or shut it and attack me. He stared at me for a moment, then hesitated and stepped out of the way. I quickly slipped past him and made a beeline for the front door. As I twisted the doorknob, I heard his footsteps running towards me. I swiftly opened the door, slammed it behind me, and sprinted towards my car. I felt the adrenaline rushing through my veins. I looked back to see if he was running after me, but he was just standing in the doorway, watching me run away with a smirk on his face. I never should have gone inside for a delivery and I never will again.